So we launched State of AI in Europe this morning, and I'm here with Seb Vaessen, who we worked with on this report. So Seb is the head of strategy at Prosus. Prosus is one of Europe's biggest tech companies listed in Amsterdam. Seb is also an advisor at Dealroom. We do a lot of stuff together, one of those things is the state of AI in Europe, which you've worked on with us, and so we're today here to talk about it. Thanks for coming. Excited to discuss this with you. So let's just dive in and start with the title, A Hidden Giant. It's quite a claim. What does that actually mean?
So there's a massive gap between the narrative and the reality. In reality, Europe is a giant. We have a lot of the foundational elements of a very strong ecosystem. It's just not that visible in the media. And if you look at what is being said about Europe, it's almost an afterthought. It's the ultimate regulator. It's sort of in the end notes of the movie. And that whole media narrative always felt so different from what I see and what we see in the data. Actually, if you look at the talent, the number of startups, we have a lot there. And that's what we wanted to show with this report. We wanted to dig into the data and create a European narrative of where we are at the moment.
So let's get into kind of these contradictions, paradoxes, because that's, I think, what the report is really about. It's organized into 3 sections: talent, usage, and startups. So starting with talent, what's the situation? How are we doing? Do we really have as much talent in Europe as we do in the US?
We do, much to my surprise as well. So one of the great things about working with the Dealroom is like they sit on this ton of data. And what some of the people here did was really count all the data scientists that they could find all around the world, map them by location, who do they work for, etc. And much to my surprise, like the total number of data scientists in Europe is as big as it is in the US. And if you look at the quality of these, it's also not just like people that applied in the day-to-day job, but also like real frontier talent. And then, much to my surprise as well, but if you look at it, 3 out of the top 10 scientists in AI are actually from Europe. DeepMind is from London. Facebook's Llama is from Paris. Actually, the invention of AI is just as much a European story as it is an American one. It's just not the narrative that you see in the media.
But are they also working on European AI, or are they working on
And this is where the paradox, I guess, comes in. Yeah. We have a lot of talent, but they're not necessarily, I think, deployed in the areas where they do, where they can do most good for Europe, if I can call it that. If you look at the key employers in the US, it's not surprising. It's basically the Magnificent Seven that have the most data scientists working for them. Interestingly, it's that same Mag 7 that are the top employers in Europe as well. And then if you go to the rest of the top 15 employers, it's not European tech companies. It's the old industrial companies.
Europe is leading the world in AI adoption, you're saying. So how do you look at that? Why is that interesting to you?
What we did here is we looked at SimilarWeb data. SimilarWeb is one of our portfolio companies. They track usage of different websites, different applications all around the world. This stat blew me away, but when we looked at it, Europeans are actually much bigger users of AI than Americans. It's almost double the rate. We have 130 million monthly users of LLMs in Europe and only 60 in the US. But I think if you think through it, it becomes even more interesting, because then what it's basically saying is we Europeans are training these American models, right? These models are ChatGPT from OpenAI, Gemini, DeepSeek from China. All of these are owned by American firms, and it's more our population training them than the US population.
So let's talk about startups. The report is showing Europe is creating them, but not scaling them.
And even worse, not owning them in the end, I would
Right.
say. So indeed, like if you look at the deal room data, and over time you've created like this massive database about this, super valuable. It is clear that Europe is insanely entrepreneurial. Europe creates as many new startups every year as the US. It's about 900 per year. But what we're missing are the really big AI companies. The whole narrative of like Europe doesn't create any entrepreneurs, we have plenty of them. We also have plenty of, plenty, it can always be more, but there's a lot of capital at that early stage as well, pursuing, helping these companies grow. I think where things break down are, it's clearly, and it's a recurring story, we see that not just in AI, but in other verticals as well, it's a recurring story for Europe that once things work, there's not enough capital to take these companies to the next level. So there's indeed scale-up capital missing.
So when you look at the European AI scorecard, talent, users, startups, we match America everywhere except one thing.
So if you compare Europe and the US, the size of our economy is roughly the same. We have roughly the same number of people. We have the same number of talents, same number of startups. We have way more users of AI. It is very clear where things break down in terms of value creation. It is the capital available for the local startups. The US is putting a lot more weight behind their local ecosystem in terms of investments than we do in Europe.
So let's talk about where Europe actually has a shot, because it sounds from reading the report that in the generative AI race, like ChatGPT, Gemini, it's over for Europe, is it?
Well, definitely, look, if you look at the media, it certainly feels like it's all about generative AI. It's all about the ChatGPTs. It's all about the Geminis of the world. And it's all about these American models versus the Chinese open source. It's sort of a two-horse race, and Europe doesn't really play a role there. And if you look at the data, it does suggest from multiple angles that we're way behind here. The only credible player we have in this space is Mistral. But I do think that losing that battle does not necessarily mean losing the full war. I think there's actually a lot we can learn from, for instance, the Chinese, where they actually decided not to take the US head on, but they actually said, okay, where can we differentiate? Which other battles are being fought that we could potentially still win and that are still wide open? And if you look at it from that angle, I think there's still a couple of areas where Europe can really play and where we have like a differentiated angle. For instance, when it comes to, first of all, open source models, I think there's a real role, like Europe has a very trusted brand. Yes, we regulate a lot, but it comes with trust. People feel that if there's a open source model from Europe, that it can be trusted, and I think we should leverage that. So I think there's still an opportunity for trusted open source LLM alternatives. Secondly, I think Europe is doing very well when it comes to vertical AI applications. All the stuff, some people would argue that the next phase from LLM is after we've built the models, it's in applying these generative AI models in the real world, in real world applications. And that's where Europe is focusing a lot of its efforts. We see that we actually have in some of these areas a very strong position in fintech, in energy, in capital, in defense tech, you name it. And I think we have a real shot at leading in some of these places. Actually, if you look at some of the companies out there, Lagora, Lovable, we have some of the world leading players in these vertical applications already. And then the third area, I would say, is world models. This is really the next generation of AI. And I think that space is still wide open.
All right. So what's the actual fix? If you could change one thing tomorrow, what would it be?
Unlock pension fund capital. Like, of course, there's so much to be done, but I think this would make a massive difference. We have the money in Europe. We sit on some of the largest pension funds in the world. And these are well funded. We can afford to invest in tech a bit more, take a bit more risk if you frame it and actually see it as an opportunity. Currently, these pension funds invest 0.1% of their assets under management. If we take that to a modest 3%, it would unlock billions, like 100 billion per annum, and I think that would immediately close the gap with the US that we currently have.
So what are the blockers, you think?
When I speak to some of these pension funds, they frame it as risky. They see European VC as risky, which is not surprising if you indeed look at the European VC scene, which is only picking up the most risky stuff. But where the biggest growth gap is in the growth stage. These companies work already. It's not that risky. It's the companies that a decade ago would have been public already. Right? These are the pre-IPO growth stage investment opportunities. That's where the biggest gap is. It's not that risky. It's a big opportunity.
Can you be a little bit more specific? Where should we invest this money?
I think it's very clear in the biggest hubs. Historically, I always feel that in Europe and also in the Netherlands and many other countries, we always have a tendency to sort of abuse the investments we do in innovation for regional development. I think in this case, look, we're behind. We need to focus, we need to catch up, and these are exponential technologies, and they require investments in the biggest hubs that we have in Europe. And there's actually only a few that really matter. It's London, Paris, Amsterdam, Stockholm, Zurich. Let's focus all of our efforts there. Let's get these ecosystems competitive with Silicon Valley, and things will trickle down from there.
And beyond capital, what does Europe need to do structurally?
I think create one single market as soon as possible. Sometimes I feel in Europe we're just stuck in the mud. Harmonization of local legislation, it takes too long. I actually think this whole EU Inc. thing is such a piece of beauty, and it's underappreciated, I think. It is not just what it is right now, a way to sort of open one company that is valid all around Europe. I think we should supercharge this thing and not just make it about company information. It should be about stock options, should be about IP, should be about labor law. We need to supercharge EU Inc. to make it much easier to operate in any way or form across Europe. And the next step, I think, for EU Inc. is to extend its reach. We need a borderless company, not just within the EU, but we need to connect and link all that talent, all those companies that are there in London, Zurich, Paris, Stockholm. Some of them are within the EU, some are outside. We need all of that talent and all that market space together. And I think if we make EU Inc. applicable across all those markets, I think that would be super powerful.
So Seb, final question. The report ends with, let's build as if Europe's future depends on it, because it does. Do you actually believe Europe can compete?
Absolutely, yes. You feel it in the air, right? The narrative is changing. I think we have all the ingredients that we need. We have the talent, we have the money, we have the startups, we have the users, we have the market. We have everything we need to succeed. We just need to grasp the moment and be courageous and have the speed to go after this opportunity. If we invest behind our own children, the future will be bright.